Thanks for clicking back to PokerNews.com and our coverage of the EPT Malta. If you've watched the WSOP coverage at all, you will know the face to my left, William Kassouf. How are you doing?
Right, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, just slightly recovering from last night's antics, but yeah, still hanging in the last 2 days.
There was a players' party last night.
There was indeed, and going out with the guys and enjoying it and catching up with a few guys I don't usually meet from back home, even though we're all from the UK, from different parts of the UK, so it's tough for all of us to meet up. So it's a great time, you know, these kind of events for everyone in the UK back home to meet up together and have that kind of like banter, camaraderie together. So yeah, it's good.
It's nice to have some fun. You like to banter a lot, as we all know. So let me ask you a few questions. Recently, Jack Effel spoke with Poker News about your behavior at WSOP. But before we get into his reaction, let's sort of go over the hand in question that got a lot of attention, which was your threes against Ace-8.
Yeah.
Talk me through that hand a little bit.
I think I'd opened in earlyish position. I think it folded around to Matthew Moss. I think he was fairly tilted from my antics prior to that and giving the speech in every hand and taking my time and decisions. But I had legitimate hands to think about. I think he was quite frustrated and just jammed all in for around 4.5 million after I raised to 500k. It folded around to me and I'm last to act. So decisions on me, there's no more action. So I'm now trying to engage in conversation with him to try and get some information from him as to what kind of holding he has. Is he shoving with ace-high here? Are we in a race situation because I'm sitting there with pocket threes? Or has he got a bigger pair? I think from his reaction, the way he shoved all in and just shoved, it just looked like he's got ace-high all day. Could have had ace-queen, ace-jack like I thought he said. I can't put him exactly on ace-8, but either way, it's going to be a race situation with 2 overcards, so it's pretty much a coin flip, even though I thought I was ahead at that point. So I'm thinking about it, so I'm trying to ask him, you know, do you want me to call? What do you want to do? Are you on tilt here, you're shoving, or you got a legit hand? So I'm allowed to ask these questions, and I read it specifically in the WSOP rules. I think Daniel Negreanu mentioned on his podcast, the only time you can engage in conversation with your opponent about the holdings of your what cards you have is when you're closing the action. So if you're closing the action, which clearly was the case here, I've raised, he shoved all in, the action's folded to me, there's no more action, the decision's on me. I'm perfectly entitled to ask him a question. And then it got a bit ridiculous. Other people got a bit frustrated on the table, called the floor, spoke to Charlie.
And then the floor originally said it was 1 player per hand, which makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. 1 player per hand. I was baffled by it. I said, what do you mean 1 player per hand? I'm sitting there by myself. There's no one else looking at my cards. I thought 1 player per hand means 1 player just looking at their cards and that's it, which clearly I was. I wasn't taking the mick. I was genuinely asking, what do you mean 1 player per hand? And you can't ask him the question. I thought, this is ridiculous. And then everyone else all chimed in and they're getting frustrated because I was talking, the action was on me and I hadn't made my decision yet whether to call or fold. They just wanted me to snap, call or fold. They think I'm wasting more time, but I had a legitimate hand here when he shoved all in. So I'm thinking of calling because I think I got the best hand. Anyway, so Charlie then goes over to Jack Effel, even though no one called Jack Effel over. No one complained to Jack to bring him over. They could have easily called a clock. I think the most logical thing to do would have called a clock if I've taken too long, let the minute count down, then my decision's there and then. Within a minute, I've either called or folded. There's no more action, right? But Charlie went to Jack Effel. Jack Effel then came to the table, which I think was the first point, if we're going to go in stages in terms of how this whole thing was completely done badly. I think Jack Effel took it upon himself to come to the table in the middle of the hand while I'm facing an all-in bet. My opponent's gone all in. I've got a decision to make. I'm trying to engage in conversation to get some information from my opponent. Why does Jack Effel then come in the middle of the hand when surely he should have used his discretion and common sense to let the hand play out, let the clock be called, let the hand be over, then take me to the side and have a word with me and say whatever he wants to say.
This wasn't the first time you had an altercation with one another, as we saw in the earlier episodes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say an altercation. I wouldn't say that I'd been in an altercation or a fight in my life, but it came to a point where it wasn't going to come to blows, but it came to a point of name calling. I think Cliff Joseph called me a clown like 5 times. I think Matthew Moss had a dig at me, said you got an IQ of a parrot, this kind of thing. I just took it with a pinch of salt. You know, I'm just like a friendly kind of open, sociable kind of guy there to enjoy myself. I'm not going to hurl insults back at them across the table. I'm not going to call them an idiot because I know exactly what's going to happen because the whole table is against me, especially with Cliff Joseph, Gordon Vail, Jared Blesnick, all those type of players. If I said one word to them, if I call them a clown or call them an idiot, snap, I'll get a 1-round penalty without question. That's how I felt. So I wasn't going to lower myself to that level. I don't need to because it's not my style of play. I don't insult, I don't berate any players at the table. But it seemed like this is the kind of thing they wanted to do to me, so I took it with a pinch of salt and laughed it off. I think that's why they got frustrated that I wasn't retaliating and reacting badly back to them. That's what got under their skin a bit more, and in the process they were losing chips to me because I was playing my A game and getting value from hands. And they
great hands too.
And they were paying me off lightly. Like any other player, I think they would have folded, but because they were so tilted and frustrated with my antics and me playing my game and talking to them every hand, they just called me light, and I was chipping up and up and up. I went from like 6 million to like 32 million in the space of like 2 hours. So yeah, from like shortest stack to chip lead on the table. So I think a lot of people thought I was an inspiration for that, and yeah, it's great. But going back on the subject of Jack Effel, yeah, clearly he should have waited till the hand was over. That would have been the common sense thing to do. It's not rocket science to I think that's the most common sense thing to do. Why is he going to hold up the game even more? He delayed proceedings himself by coming into the middle of the hand and saying what he had to say, which then put me on the back foot, and I had to defend myself and defend my actions and effectively tell him what the rule was. This is the WSOP rule. He came up to me and said, when I explained the situation, I'm trying to get information, he openly said, it's none of your business whether he wants you to call or not. Excuse me? We're heads up. I'm closing the action. Of course it's my business if I want him to call or not. This is the whole point. I've got a decision here. He's gone all in. He goes, the action's on you. You have to play your hand. It doesn't matter what you want him to do. I said, well, that's the whole point, Jack. The action's on me. It's my decision. I need to get information from my opponent. Well, he doesn't want to talk to you. That's irrelevant. Whether he wants to talk to me or not, I didn't say.
He doesn't have to talk to you.
He doesn't have to talk to me. But I'm still entitled to ask the questions, am I not? I'm not doing anything untoward. I'm playing within the rules. I'm trying to get information from my opponent. As simple as that. I'm not being rude or anything like that. So I thought it was ridiculous how he said that. So I thought that ruling was completely wrong. Especially he should know that rule. It's his own rule. To say if you're closing the action, you can speak to your opponent. To say that I couldn't speak to my opponent then, one player by hand from Charlie, and then it's none of your business if he wants you to call or not. I think that was absolutely ridiculous. So I felt as if it's like one rule for everyone else, but a different rule for me when it came to that. So I was a bit upset or annoyed. I didn't show my anger or frustration. I kept a cool head, even though the whole table was against me, and even the tournament director was against me. Seemed to come in the middle of the hand and just give a bizarre ruling like that, which is completely wrong.
So, Poker News interviewed him. Did you read the interview?
With Jack Effel, with you guys, yeah, I read that, and I think he makes himself sound just as silly in the interview as he did during the WSOP.
How so?
I think one of the questions you put to him, Cliff Josephy called William Kassouf a clown. How do you look back on that? And would you do anything different, kind of thing? And I was surprised when I saw in his interview, he said, no, he brought it all on himself. And he was basically asking for it. If you push someone into a corner so far, there's only so much they can take before they retaliate. So I'm not going to give him a penalty. And I think, it was all down to him. He was the instigator and the antagonist, right? And I thought, what? This is from the WSOP. This sounds like a guy on Team Josephy here, not the TD of the WSOP main event. How can he say that? It effectively opens up a can of worms to say, well, if you did something that I didn't approve or I didn't like, and you are annoying me at the table, I can call you a clown and call you an idiot. That's fine. That's fine because you started it. That's fine. You started it. You deserve it. There's no penalty given. But if the shoe was on the other foot, 100%, I'm 100% sure of this, and if I call Joseph a clown or anyone else on the table a clown, even jokingly or whatever, 1 second, it'll be snap 1 round penalty. Especially on day 5, going back to that, how he gave a 1 round penalty for taunting, which I thought was absolute bullshit, because it wasn't taunting in the slightest, because he wasn't even there for most of the hand. Literally, I just said, you phone
against
show.
the woman.
Against Stacey Madsen, when I said, you phone show, I'll show. How is that taunting? I wasn't advising her to fold, just doing the same action before I was told I couldn't say a word. So I improvised and did the miming action, you phone charge. How is that in any way taunting whatsoever? So I thought they were against me from then. They were watching me closely. Every opportunity they had to clamp down on me, they did. And it wasn't just Charlie. It wasn't just Jack Effel. It was TD Robbie as well. I think it was on day 6 when I was in a pot with Jason Les. And I'd made a bet against him or 3-bet him, whatever, or bet the flop. And I was speaking to him. I was no shame in folding. I've got you beat, which you're entitled to do. He said, once you've made a bet, you cannot talk to your opponent. I said, excuse me? Once you've made a bet, you cannot say anything. I said, is that in the rule? I didn't think that was in the rule. And that was the ruling. I didn't think that was in the rule. Norman Chad piped up and said, I didn't think that was in the rule either. And Danny Negron is recently, I've seen his tweet, and he's recently written it, they're just making up the rules as they go along, just like off the fly, just like that. It's like, that's not a rule. How are they making that rule? And they would never say that rule to anyone else on the table. Other people making bets and talking to their opponents in the pot. I had no problem with that, obviously, because I'm a big proponent for talking, especially in the heads-up pots. But other players would do that. They wouldn't get a warning. They wouldn't get a penalty to say, once you bet, you can't talk to opponents. So it seems
no other player would do that, or you sort of the known players have more lenient rules against them? Or do you think any other player would have the same reaction as yourself?
The way I felt there was a rule for everyone else and a separate rule for me. I think I was like a target there, not just for the players, but for the TDs, the floor staff there at the WSOP. They've known that in the past I was this guy who was like pushing the boundaries. I mean, even though Jack Effel admitted on camera, and I haven't broken any of the WSOP rules, but I'm pushing the boundaries to the limit that he's forcing me to intervene for the integrity of the game and the sportsmanlike behaviour on the table. I said, Jack, I appreciate that. I understand the integrity of the game. I'm not coming here to disrespect or berate anyone, but you have to understand I'm here to play my game my way, and if it means giving some of the speech in a heads-up pot, which I'm entitled to do in every hand, then why am I being brought up for penalties? You just admitted on camera that I'm not breaking any of the rules, so why are you pulling me up? Why am I getting a penalty?
But what about the idea that maybe it's not exactly what you're saying, or speech play isn't directly breaking the rule, but you are stalling the game. You are at a table, you're deep in the main event. It's it is the biggest event in poker.
Yeah.
And your table is not going to get as many hands and hours as another table because of the way you're playing. Do you understand that argument?
Yeah, I totally understand that argument, but I wasn't stalling intentionally. I wasn't like tanking with 10 deuce off or anything in every hand. I think I had decision in every hand. I had like pocket threes, pocket queens, jack seven dimes when I decided to raise, especially with the pocket queens hand when I was in the big blind. They'd gone raised from Gordon Avers, gone call, like four callers before me, and I've got a decision there. And they're calling the clock on me because I've been doing it in other hands when I had decision as well. Maybe not as big as pocket queens, but still I had holdings, I had hands. I wasn't tanking with garbage. And the one where Cliff Joseph has a go at me, he's not even looking at his hand. He's taking like 15 seconds to look at his hand. I'd already looked. He hadn't noticed. I'd already looked at my hand, but I was stacking my chips up, which were in a pile in front of me from the previous hand that I won. I'd already looked at my hand, but he started goading me. Oh, look, he's not even looking at his hand. He's taking 15 seconds to act. First of all, it wasn't even 15 seconds. And secondly, I'd already looked at my hand, but he hadn't noticed. So I was thinking of what to do while I was stacking my chips. I'm doing two things at the same time. So he didn't realize that and obviously just snapped. I think the whole table was just frustrated. They were all on tilt. They just couldn't take us. Any opportunity they had to call the clock on me, to call me out, to do anything they could to get the floor on their side, they would do. Like a lot of people have said on Twitter, a bunch of crybabies. Literally, they're all grown men, multimillionaires, multi-bracelet winners, and this is how they're reacting to a bit of banter, a bit of speech play, a bit of like taking my time when I got decision, but I had hands, as you've seen. I've not been tanking with rubbish. So for them to react like that, I thought was ridiculous. And people thought it was like gang-like mentality, Cliff Joseph being like the shepherd of the flock, if you like, and the rest of them didn't. Individually, they said nothing. But collectively, as soon as Joseph piped up, it seemed like everyone else would join in like a bunch of sheep going meh and complaining about everything that I'm doing. I think it just seemed ridiculous. Like they're crying to the head teacher, like, sir, please, I don't like him talking to me in a heads-up pot. Please, sir, make him stop. I don't like it. And it seemed like when Jack Effel came over the table, it looked like he was succumbed to the pressure of the big names, like Veo, like Blesnik, like Johnny Bax, Cliff Joseph in particular. And it seemed like, even though he was in the wrong, and even though he admitted, Cliff Joseph admitted to Jack Effel that it was just me. Yes, I called him a clown several times. Yeah, it was me. Even though he admitted that, Jack Effel didn't even turn around and give him a penalty. Not even a warning. Not one warning, not one.
So do you think if you were a name, if you were Cliff Joseph or someone else who's known in the community a little more than yourself, do you think Jack would have responded in a different way?
100%. I think a lot of people said because of Cliff Joseph, if you're in the same category, Cliff Joseph, Phil Hellmuth, and all these big name players, big name celebrities, big talks, people who talk on the table as well, big personalities like that, it seems like there's going to be one rule for them and one rule for everyone else. And especially it was me, I'm the instigator, the so-called like troublemaker, he's pushing the boundaries every time, we're going to clamp down on him. Whatever he says or does to justify what he says is irrelevant. If I think he's out of line, we're going to give him a penalty. We're going to shut him down. So effectively that's what they were doing. Joseph was frustrated, the whole table was frustrated. I think Jack Effel succumbed to the pressure of the big name players. He had to be seen to do something. And even though Joseph admitted that he was calling me a clown and he was out of line effectively, Jack still didn't give him a warning. He completely turned it on his head and said, yeah, Cliff, yeah, we'll handle it from here, we'll monitor him, yeah, we'll watch the situation carefully. As if I was the one who was like the troublemaker here and I was doing the name calling when I hadn't insulted or berated anyone at all. So that's what I thought was ridiculous. One rule for them and a separate rule for me.
Do you think that the coverage adequately depict what was happening at the featured table?
I think so. I think it's a great coverage from ESPN. They've portrayed me as a villain, then the hero, and then the villain again from different episodes. You get like two sides. I mean, I don't think there's like two sides to my game. There's one side to my game in terms of I play my game. I had to with the World Series main event. You've got to use your edge. You've got to, whatever edge you have at the table. If it means taking your time, if it means giving the speech to your opponent, if it means you can see them going on tilt and they're steaming because you're doing what you're doing, but you're playing within the rules, so be it. These are the top pros. These are multi-millionaires, multi-bracelet winners, and this is how they're acting and reacting to a bit of banter and speech on the table. I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, no disrespect to them, but I felt as if I'm playing with a bunch of amateurs in a $100 bowl comp. Seriously, I couldn't believe the reaction I was getting from them. I thought it was hilarious. I was loving it.
So you hadn't gotten reactions like that before? This is the first time you've noticed pros reacting in this way?
Never on this level. And I thought day 7 of the main event, I was thinking to myself, wow, is this really happening? These are some of the best players. I've heard of these players before. Never played with them before. Not one of them. But heard of all of them. Big name pros, multi-millionaires, millions of dollars in the bank. Good luck to them. But they completely lost it. I couldn't believe it. It was too easy. It was just too easy. I wasn't doing anything exceptionally different to what I usually do. I play the same way in a $100 comp than I do in a 10K main event. I do the same thing when I'm on the feature table, off the feature table, male, female. I don't discriminate. It's a big part of my game. This is what I do. I don't insult anyone. This is just part of my game.
So here in Malta, are you playing the same way? Have you altered your game a little bit? Because people have now seen a lot of your speech play, seen a lot of your game. Do you now have to sort of switch things up a little bit?
Not really switch things up. I continue to do the same thing. I've done the same thing for the last 10 years or 12 years that I've been playing poker. I've been playing poker full-time, professionally for the last 3.5 years now. But improving my game, getting the results in the UK, in Europe, and recently in Las Vegas, as you know. So yeah, just doing the same thing. It seems to work for me. People might think that I might change because I have, they've seen all the coverage and I've got tells on me or whatever, but then I might do the same thing to counteract that. And it's almost like mind games, double mind games. This is what I like about the game, and this is my game to a T. It's literally the psychological game. Other players might play the maths game, look at the pot odds and do all that. I do, obviously that's a part of the game to look at the odds and whether it's call, fold, etc. But I think the psychological aspect of the game is a much bigger part of my game, to really get an understanding from your opponent what they have, getting into your opponent's mind, what are they thinking that you're thinking they have, and trying to effectively make your move based on that information. It's an information-seeking game in the day. And people were asking me in previous interviews what it's like to be going from a lawyer to a poker player, and it's a similar kind of analogy between the two. Like you're in a court of law, you've got the evidence before you, you've got to outwit your opponent, the other barrister who's there to convince the judge that your client's not guilty.
See what their argument will be. You're like, you have to, as a lawyer, you need to sort of predict what their arguments will be against you before they even make those arguments.
Yeah. And you've got to think on your feet, you've got to be quick, you've got to be witty, you've got to be on the ball constantly the whole time. So just like in the WSOP main event, biggest tournament in the world, some of the best players in the world, you've got to use all the information you have in front of you, not just the cards and the flop textures, not just the chip stacks, but the players you're up against, who's loose, passive, tight, aggressive, etc. How are they playing this hand? Why are they raising? Why are they checking? So all these things are going through my mind. What do I think they put me on in this hand before I make my move and give them the speech effectively? So I'll give a different speech whether I want them to call, different speech if I want them to fold, but I'll mix it up at the same time to confuse them, because being unpredictable is a key trait to have on the poker table. So that's the direct analogy between going from the courtroom to playing poker full time. And yeah, thoroughly enjoy it. I love the psychological aspect of the game more than just the gamble and the coin flips and ace king versus queens, raise, re-raise, all in call, and who can be lucky and win a race. You know, although that's part of the game, I like the more psychological aspect. Playing the streets, you know, flop, turn, and river, going through the hand. I could represent so many more hands, getting into my opponent's mind, convince them I got the best hand when I don't, and vice versa. And this is a big part of my game. And I think that's what was getting them frustrated as well, especially pre.
What's been the reaction with your tablemates here in Malta?
I'll tell you, yeah, they've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been immense. I don't want to blow my own trumpet here, but I've literally had like 25, 30 people want to have selfies with me, want to have everything. You're a hero, you're a legend. We've been watching the coverage. It's been so boring the last few years, but this year has been immense. Just been loving the coverage. Keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing how you did it, and you went from short stack to like one of the chip leaders on the table, and you crushed the table. You put the whole table on tilt, and this is in day 7 of the main event, and these are all top pros, and you put the whole table on tilt, just doing what you do, just playing your game, and you weren't rude. If anything, they were the bunch of clowns, how they would try to gang up on you and try to shut you down because they couldn't take it. They were getting frustrated. You were outplaying them and outspeeching them. So I took that as a massive compliment, obviously. So getting loads of selfies, loads of people coming up to me, even some top name pros coming up to me and congratulating me. I think, yes, it buzzed. It's massively, it's buzzing. So people telling me on Hindermob, I'm the #1 searched for on Hindermob in the whole world right now, with Sam Abernathy second and Fedor Holes now in 4th. So yes, it's a massive buzz. Now I'll just take a pinch of salt, keep my feet on the ground. I'll still continue.
Enjoy being #1 over Fedor. That's a tough feat. Very few players been able to do that.
No, phenomenal player. Considering his age and the time he's been playing, fantastic. You can't take anything away from him. Some people were like berating him. Oh, he's so lucky. He's such a luck box and this and that. But you've got to give him credit. He's got the results. He's got all of that to back it up. All the trophies. It's a fair play to him. So yeah, to be above him, to be above Sam Abernathy and other big name pros. Tony Gregg was up there once, second or third a couple of weeks ago. Yes, to still be top like after 3-4 weeks. Yeah, it's just immense. Not just that, just like on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, it's just been blowing up. It's been unbelievable, but in a good way. I mean, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Majority of the people I have spoken to and have got comments from are in favour of it. They love it. They think it's great entertainment. It's great for TV, great for poker at the end of the day, because you need personalities in the game. You need characters in the game. It's a dying game otherwise with people. I know it's like stereotypical to say, oh, these guys in hoodies sitting there for 12 hours a day with hoodies, sunglasses, headphones on, saying nothing. They don't have to be in hoodies and sunglasses, but you can tell from even on day 7 the main event, even people who weren't wearing hoodies and sunglasses can see they're tilted because they're just sitting there in silence and not enjoying the banter, not engaging in the conversation and letting it get under their skin and like trying to fight it rather than go with it. And you saw a stark contrast on the coverage from how they were reacting on day 7 with people on the feature table compared to Andrew Christoforou, who's the other Brit, and we were bouncing off each other. There was like Benny Hill music, I think, in the background, and I was having banter with him. He's having banter, "Oh, shut up, we'll get on with it, leave me out." And saying, "Andrew Christoforou, day 7 main, how have you made day 7 the main event?" And he laughed and joked about it. Other people might have got insulted. What are you talking about? You think I'm not good enough? They'd react and they'd want to fight it. But he took it with a pinch of salt. We bounced off each other. We had a good time. That's exactly how it should be. And I'm glad ESPN showed that part because that's exactly what I do. I do the same thing to them as I did to everyone else. I don't discriminate, male, female, or feature table or not, and Americans or non-Americans. But you can see how he reacted to it. Obviously, he knows me and knows my game, but I'm saying pretty much the same thing, and he's having a good time and enjoying it, and enjoying the banter, and that's how you should. You should be embracing it and enjoying it for the love of the game. It's live poker in the day. But what the other guys did was the complete opposite, like Cliff Joseph and co. Just completely lost it, let it get under their skin, started name-calling me across the table, which was really low, and he's lowered his reputation. People said they've lost all respect for Cliff Joseph now after they've seen that clip. They thought he wasn't like that at all. I was meant to be a gentleman in the game, multi-bracelet winner, millionaire, etc. But after seeing that, being like the leader of the gang, if you like, to gang up on me and name call me, calling me a clown several times and get that flustered. Yeah, I think he's lost all credibility there. So yeah, it's unfortunate, really. It's a shame to see. I think they should all be embarrassed, all of them on the feature table, how they acted and reacted. Just a bit of abandoned speech. Even if I'm taking my time to call the clock on me every time, like Jared Blesnik even said, I'm going to call the clock on him in every hand. Every hand I'm going to call the clock on him. Even Matthew Moss to say, not just, I've got an IQ of a parrot, but then to belittle me to say, he just posted a £500 photo of his stack on Facebook and laughing and joking about it, and fist bumping Johnny Backs and everything. And then the whole point of collusion, which I think is another point that other people have mentioned, which maybe hasn't been highlighted. When Joseph pipes up after the hand was over, the pocket threes against the ace-8 hand, sorry, I felt as if I had to speak on your behalf. I didn't want you to have to talk. So he was like being, the bigger man. I'll defend you. And then he went on to say, we're all on the same team here. What does that mean? Is that collusion? We're all on the same team here? So we're all playing a team game against Will? So that's how it felt. That's exactly how it was. I didn't hear it at the time because across the other side of the table. Had I heard it, I'd have made a complaint about it. What do you mean we're on the same team here? That's blatant collusion. So I think, that was definitely wrong in that regard. I think Jared Blesnik off the table, again, I didn't hear it because it's picked up from his microphone, talking to his rail, saying this guy plays $10 tournaments. He's like got 4% of himself and just belittling me again. So again, another unnecessary, needless, putting me down kind of thing when I've said nothing wrong or said anything insulting or in a bad way, anything mean-spirited, so to speak, to any other player. So that's how it was. I'm glad the coverage came out as it did. It's shown everyone in a true light, especially those who are on the November 9 who reacted that way on the feature table.
We don't want to give that away yet because that episode hasn't aired.
No, it hasn't aired. But we know, obviously, that some of those players...
Google it, you'll find out who the November 9 are.
Exactly. I mean, you've seen some of the players that were on my feature table. Obviously, some of them, not all of them did, maybe half, or some of them anyway, made the November 9. So I think it's put them in a bad light prior to the November 9 being played out. I think people lost a lot of respect for them, and they should be ashamed and embarrassed of what they did. I mean, if they're a bunch of amateurs doing it and having a slanging match in a $100 comp, that's different. But this is Day 7, the World Series main event, the most prestigious tournament in the world, and the standing and the caliber of players that were there, and considering their standing in the community, especially Cliff Joseph and Gordon Veil and Jared Blesnik, Kenny Hallett, especially being tournament director in Belgium, I think it was shocking. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for them, really. So I was shocked.
Well, if you're Team Josephie or Team Kassouf, you're probably going to watch the next episode, which airs tonight in America. And we're actually going to have you back to talk about the next episode and sort of what transpires with that. Yeah. So I want you to tweet at me at Sasha Salinger or comment below the video and ask your questions for William Kassouf. And good or bad, I'll read all of them, and I will bring both good and bad to him later on this week. So have your voice heard, and thank you for the interview and your side of the story.
No worries.
And of course, stay tuned to PokerNews.com for the Jack Effel story and the William Kassouf story and the whoever next story.
That's it.